Hello everyone, I'm Supurplayur301 and I'm finally back. So I could go into length about why this episode took me so long to do, but we're just gonna get straight to it. Let's just say that I had technical difficulties. So at first, I wasn't gonna talk about the PC gaming show because I felt like it was a show I wasn't really gonna spend a lot of time on, and I realized I was gonna spend a lot of time on Ubisoft more than likely. So I decided, why not just clump them together and make one big video, as opposed to making, just a really short video, then a really long video. So we're going to talk about first the PC gaming show, then we're going to talk about Ubisoft. And the second video is going to be out this week, guys, I promise. So let's get started. The PC gaming show is a weird one. It went from being a really bad, horrible show. Like, the first PC gaming show was the most boring thing I've ever watched, ever. And, sorry. But then, after that, the second one wasn't really terrible. Now, the thing about the PC gaming show is they don't really announce anything new as much as they kind of just announce stuff. They don't really announce much at the PC gaming show. And this year, instead of being sponsored by AMD, it's going to be sponsored by... Sorry, a little sick. Instead of being sponsored by AMD, it's going to be sponsored by Intel. And it's believed they're going to announce some new CPUs and chips and whatnot at this event. And we're probably going to hear announcements from, PC developers and things of that nature. So I'm not really sure what to say about this. I mean, my big three predictions. One, it's going to be longer than it should be. Most press conferences like an hour, hour and a half. It's going to be like maybe more than 2 hours. Two, we're going to get at least one new Intel CPU announced. And three, we'll get a new game announced. The game we didn't know existed will be announced, the event. But that's all I got. I really don't have much for the PC gaming show because, once again, it's not one of those shows where you really expect to see big announcements from, you know what I mean? So that's it. Let's move on to Ubisoft. Ubisoft, honestly, I think is probably going to, is once again, as it was last year, I think it's going to be this year the show that becomes the sleeper one, the one that probably has the most potential to be the best in show that no one's expecting. Because, I mean, think about think about last year's Ubisoft. Last year, Ubisoft played it kind of safe. I mean, they announced some interesting stuff. The Star Trek presentation with LeVar Burton was awesome. It's one of my favorite parts of the entire show. But remember, this is a year that did not have an Assassin's Creed game. And it kind of relied mostly on Watch Dogs 2 to be its big seller, which, good game. Watch Dogs 2. Watch Dogs 1 was an incredible game, and Watch Dogs 2 just improved on what was already a great game, and I respect that. But this year they have a lot of shoes to fill. They have a lot of answers to questions that have been asked. So luckily I waited this long because we now know Far Cry 5 is going to be there, and it's probably going to be set in a back Western type of era, which is going to be very interesting to see since Red Dead Redemption 2 is about to come out. And we're also going to get a new Assassin's Creed game. And if all the rumors are true, which they probably are, we've had so many leaks, we pretty much know what Assassin's Creed is. We'll get to Assassin's Creed in a second. We also know that they're going to have, they also said that The Crew 2 is going to be out before next March, which is awesome. We know that South Park A Fractured Butthole is going to actually have has a release date, and hopefully it's actually going to stay at that release date. And we also know that they have a couple of unannounced new IPs that are coming out soon. We don't know what they are yet, but they have announced that there's going to be new IPs coming out soon. So they have a lot to talk about. But first, before we go on any further, let's talk about Assassin's Creed. Now, originally it was supposed to be, they said it was going to be called Assassin's Creed Empires, but now we know it's going to be called Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, it's going to be set in ancient Egypt, which will make it probably the first Assassin's Creed, like a first assassin that we've seen, like the earliest one. We know that it's going to be a lot more open world than the other games are, more exploration. We know we're going to have naval again. Now, we don't know if it's going to be naval combat and transportation, but we do know it's going to be transportation. But there's been back and forth rumors. Some people saying, yeah, it's going to be combat. Some people saying, no, it's not going to be any combat. So those rumors are going back and forth right now. We'll have to wait and see. And there's just a lot of questions about the game and answers so far. So I'm excited. I love Assassin's Creed. I think they do world creation and detail better than almost any open world game ever. I mean, it is an excellent. You feel so immersed when you're playing through when you're playing through an Assassin's Creed game. You know, when you play through Assassin's Creed Syndicate, you feel like you're in, you know, London. When you're playing through Black Flag, you feel like you're actually, you know, on a, you know, it feels so like pirate-like and things. When you play Assassin's Creed 3, you feel like you're in the revolution times, you know. So there's so much awesome stuff that goes on in these games, and I think people that don't enjoy Assassin's Creed games are the same people who love to say things like, oh, you know, Ubisoft sucks, and don't say Ubisoft, sucks and everything. Once you play the games, you learn that they're actually really, really good, you know, and it's going to be interesting because it's been a while since we've seen them have so much development time for Assassin's Creed games. So I want to see how different it feels. Let me be the first one to say this is not going to be a drastic jump or change from the Assassin's Creed brand. You know, we're not going to see a huge like shift. It's going to be the same game. Let's be honest here. The question, I think, is going to be how much they've had enough time. How much have they taken it and tweaked it to make it feel like something new and original? And how much, you know, the character's going to be and all these things. What are we going to see from this franchise that's new other than just the area or the time period? So I'm pretty excited about Assassin's Creed Origins. I hope it's as fun as I want it to be. I hope it takes from its tradition of both Assassin's Creed games and it's very accurate to the time period. And, you know, if the rumors are to be true, it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's move on to, what are we moving on to? Far Cry 5. Far Cry 5 is a very interesting game for what we're hearing right now. So most people are saying it's going to be set in the spaghetti western era. I don't know why it's called a spaghetti western. I should probably look that up. Anyway, we know it's going to be set in that era, and we also know it's going to be set in, I think, is it Holt County, Montana, or is it? Hold on one second. Let me look this up because the trailer just dropped a few minutes ago as I'm recording this. Like, I record these kind of the same day they come out. And so let me see. They just came out. Hope County, Montana. Yes, Hope County, Montana is the area it's going to be set in, which is in Montana. So, you know, it's probably going to be like a western or a farming simulator. And I don't think they're going to be creating a farming simulator anytime soon. But it being a western does bring up a very interesting conundrum. Because, as all of you probably know, Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming out, which I plan on talking about in one of the last episodes. I'm going to talk about some of my most anticipated games. We'll get to that. It's coming out. And it would be kind of foolish for any company, even a company as big as Nintendo, to try to go toe-to-toe with Red Dead Redemption, or any Rockstar game for that matter. And on top of that, to go toe-to-toe with them with a game that's set in more or less the exact same time period? That's a very strange choice. Now, of course, let me be the first one to say I don't think this game started development as soon as we heard Red Dead Redemption 2 was about to come out. I think this game has probably been in development for a few years now, so this wasn't a direct result of, you know, the game. You know, a lot of people are saying that, oh, why would they do that? They're trying to get on. No. These games have both been in development for years. You know, people don't start development of games the day they're announced and somehow have a game ready in a few months. That's not how it works. So it's sorry guys, I'm really sick. I'm sorry. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Do they announce it and then push it back to like January-ish? Because Red Dead Redemption 2, they said the fall 2017. That could mean September, October, November. That could mean any of those months. Do they take a risk and announce a release date at E3? Or do they wait for Red Dead Redemption 2? At which point, if they wait, that means they're able to, you know, decide, do we want to put it out earlier or later? Because in my perspective, if you have a choice between two Western games, are you going to choose Far Cry or are you going to choose Red Dead Redemption 2? And I think that most people are going to go with Red Dead Redemption 2, and you don't want to hurt sales that way. That's the same thing that happened to Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 2. Both great games. But when you have Battlefield 1, Titanfall 2, and Call of Infinite Warfare all come out within the span of 2 weeks, you have to make a choice which one you're going to buy. And not a lot of people chose Titanfall 2, which is sad because Titanfall 2 is a fun game. I enjoy it. So I'm interested to see how they're going to take that time period. I mean, I loved Far Cry 4. I loved the world. Once again, Ubisoft is incredible at world building and making the environment detailed and feel real. So I don't doubt for 1 second that they can, you know, knock it out of the park. The question is it going to be good, but no one's going to buy it? So I think they should hold on, pull it back, and wait to see what's going to happen with RDR2 before they decide on whether or not they're going to release it. Do not announce Ubisoft, if you're listening to me right now. Hey, what's up? I love your games. Do not announce a release date for Far Cry 5 at this event. Announce a time period, maybe like winter or fall, and then wait till after Red Dead Redemption 2 gets an announcement. Then you announce yours, because you don't want to go toe to toe with them. You want to give that game at least a month to exist before you come out. A month before, or a month after. Other big game I want to talk about is The Crew 2. Now, The Crew is awesome. Ubisoft knocked it out of the park with this one, and I think it's one of those games that if you don't play through, you don't truly understand how good it is. It is incredibly fun. You know, the concept of a map of the entire United States. Now, of course, the map couldn't be as big as you want it to be. I mean, it was accurate for what it was. You know, I mean, do you know how long? I mean, think how long it takes to build Grand Theft Auto 5, and that was just a map of a couple of cities in California, and those are extremely detailed. So imagine how long it would take to make a map of every major city in every state in the United States and make it feel real, alive, and vibrant. It would take years, decades. You'd have to string together 48 different game studios. This would be the biggest endeavor of all time to make something as accurate as Los Santos, but for every city. And so I think that the way they did it, you know, they had the major landmarks and, you know, the locations. So they did what they could, you know, but I think with The Crew 2, it's going to be very interesting to see, you know, because The Crew 2, one of the things they hinted at was that it's going to be more than just, you know, ground. It's going to maybe include air, things of that nature. And so it's going to be pretty interesting to see, you know, what happens from that. You know what I mean? It's going to be interesting. You know, yep, it says the official on Twitter account, they shared the logo and it said Beyond the Road. Stay with us for more high octane thrills. So what that makes me think of is that we're probably going to have, you know, more than just driving in this game. Maybe we'll have flight or boats or things of that nature. The other question that comes to mind is, are we going to stay in the US? Are we going to do like Forza and maybe move the game from the US to Europe or a different country? You know, because think about it, if you move to just a giant, like if they go to Australia, which you shouldn't do because Forza Horizon just did it and people would point that out that you did that. But if you do something like that, where you go from, you know, go to a big country, then it means you can make that country detailed, as opposed to trying to lay out accurate things for every single location in America. You know what I mean? Once again, I think that the team that works on The Crew, I think they did a great job, and I'm really excited to see The Crew 2. And I hope that even though it says it come out within any time in the next year, I hope it's sooner rather than later. I hope it's not March of next year. I hope that's not when we see it, and I hope it doesn't get delayed. Unless it has to get delayed. I'm a fan of delays and pushbacks if it means that the game is getting improved. You know, I want when developers of the game out to be the best game they can make. And so I do hope that that's what happens with this game. I don't want to see any more buggy releases. Game industry, no more buggy releases. Just push the game back. It's okay. I'll live. What else? South Park Fractured Butthole. I haven't beaten Stick of Truth yet. I've played through it. It's pretty fun, and I'm excited because if you buy the Fractured Butthole, then you get the Stick of Truth free. So I'm confused why it's been delayed so long. I don't work at Ubisoft, so I couldn't tell you. Excuse me. But I do think that it's going to be fun. It's a game that Ubisoft has gotten right. Oh, I got hiccups. I'm dying. It's a game that Ubisoft. Sorry about that. Oh my gosh, my chest was bumping. Oh, anyway. So it's a game that Ubisoft has gotten right the first time, and I think they'll get it right the second time, if not better. You know. So I think that if they delayed it, then it was for a good reason. I also think that the biggest question for Ubisoft coming in E3 is, at their investors meeting, they mentioned that they want to go away from having more releases to less releases, and more of the games, instead of being single player only experiences, to being more live services. Kind of like how For Honor is and Wildlands and these games that are all mostly multiplayer games, and they can extend the life of them through multiplayer. Now, I have a few opinions on this. One, I don't think having fewer game releases is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, so many games come out all the time anyway that it's hard to keep up, period. You know what I mean? I mean, any given month you could have 6 to 7 to 8 major AAA title releases, and then on top of that, think of all the smaller titles and the indie titles that come out in between. So there's a lot of games that exist right now, and the idea that maybe we'll have less of them and games that I can invest more time into to actually finish really does fill me with happiness and joy a little bit. But at the same time, also less original ideas, substitute that for multiplayer games. If you're not into multiplayer like that, then that's not something that appeals to you. And I will admit, I am more of a single player guy. I do love to experience stories more on my own than with than in the community, but I do enjoy multiplayer games from time to time, depending on what the game is. So I think that there's two sides of this coin. I think one, yes, you should definitely understand we're going to a more multiplayer focused world, and there's not really much we can do about it unless we stop buying them or paying for them. But at the same time, don't necessarily think that means I'm not going to have any single player games anymore, period. So there's that. What else? So also, we know that they have a few unannounced new IPs. And we have no idea what these are. They haven't dropped hints to them. The leak community hasn't even leaked them out. And we don't even know when we're going to see these new titles. But we do know that they have a few new IPs in the works. And yes, I'm getting to Nintendo. I'm getting to the Rabbids game in just a few seconds. And so it's going to be interesting to see if we see any of those at this event. Do we see just the big titles that we know about already? Do we see any of these new IPs? It's going to be interesting to figure that out. And like I said, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Rabbids, Mario. It's going to be awesome. I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, we're talking about a Rabbids game mixed with a Super Mario game, and it's an RPG. Oh my gosh, I'm so freaking excited. It's a game that sounds ridiculous, and it's probably gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see what Ubisoft does with it, and so I'm pretty excited to see what will become of this. Yes, it's gonna be on the Switch, and I'm pretty sure this is gonna be a determinant for Ubisoft to see if they continue to make Switch games. So here's my 3 major over-the-top predictions. Number 1, The Crew 2 gets a release window, not a release date. I do think it's going to be 2018, but I say a release window for The Crew 2. 2, we see at least 2 new games announced. Not necessarily new IPs, but 2 new games that we did not know existed announced. 2, minimum. And 3, what's 3? What's 3? Oh, I had a good one too, but I think I forgot it. I was gonna say we're not gonna see a new Watch Dogs announcement, but that's kind of lame. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I think we're gonna see Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs go back and forth. So I think this year is Assassin's Creed. Then next year we'll see a new Watch Dogs game, because now they've built the system where they can not have an Assassin's Creed game every year. So I think they should stick with that system, and they should just sub out Watch Dogs. And then next year another Assassin's. Then the year after 2019, Assassin's Creed back forth. I don't know. Number 3, Ubisoft has the best press conference of the event. Like I said, I have confidence they're going to come from behind and have an incredible event. I think Sony's going to have a good one, but I hope they don't recycle the same live orchestra thing, because that's what won them that last year. I mean, last year, did they really make any game announcements that were super good? We'll get to Sony in a minute. We'll get to Sony later. They announced some stuff, but I don't think they announced anything that really. I think it was the show that won them E3, not necessarily the games that won them E3. But I will get yelled at later for saying that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, I do apologize that we did not have a show last week. I had technical difficulties, couldn't record. And so we're going to have 2 this week. We're going to have this one, and then we're going to have another one at the end of the week as well, where we're going to talk about Devolver Digital and PlayStation. And I'm planning another video for this week. Don't quote me on this, but we should have another video some point in the middle of the week. But either way, thank you so much, guys, for watching. And this is Supurplayur301 signing out.